I'd never really talked about it explicitly. In fact, working in kitchens where I was in the pastry section, I'd sometimes felt a bit apologetic, like it was the trivial sort of section, the kind of afterthought to the meal. I've done wedding cakes, and I know somehow that I'm connected to that person forever.
Was getting into the food industry ever a possible career path?
Yeah, no, absolutely not. It was never said explicitly that we had to go to university. My father, who I think, really suffered through this idea that he was nobody and it was that sacrifice for us. I think I didn't tell my parents for a very long time, just because I think it might have been quite heartbreaking for them. So I wrote an email to Yotam that afternoon, and he responded to me within the hour. He'd had an Australian neighbour who'd had a tip-off of a friend that I was coming to London, and Yotam should look out for me. So he was kind of waiting for me. And
this is serendipity.
I know.
I can't think of anything more nerve-wracking than creating a recipe and getting Yotam to try it.
For 10 years that I worked kind of solidly there, I don't think I felt that, but I think I do now.
Helen, welcome to Crazy Sexy Food.
Thank you so much, Hannah. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming over. I feel like this is a long time coming. We met initially, it was probably about 2 years ago now. I came over to your house to interview you for my People Behind the Food series. And there was something about your energy when I came in, which you may not even remember, but I was actually secretly pregnant at the time, because I think I'd literally just found out the week before. But you fed me. You fed me Alexa. And it was Alexa. And I sort of felt like I was taken in your arms and I was sat down at the table, and it was just, I don't know, the art of feeding someone who's just walked into your house as a stranger, to be fair, I found really beautiful. So
I think it says a lot about you, that your openness as well.
Yeah.
And I mean, gosh, if you were pregnant at the time, I hope that wasn't an ordeal eating.
Oh no, it was bloody delicious. A little bit spicy, a little bit exciting. I loved it. But really a huge congratulations to you, because this beautiful masterpiece has just come out, Baking and the Meaning of Life. What a title.
I know, it's a bit grandiose, actually.
Love it. I think if you're going to go hard, go for it.
When I was training as a psychologist, one of the key texts for me was by a New York psychoanalyst called Irvin Yalom. And he had a book called Mama and the Meaning of Life. First of all, I loved the title. And it was really about how the minutiae and the little everyday moments in life put together is what makes life extraordinary. And I just that concept. And for me, I took something from that baking is so, in some ways, very ordinary, very homely, very domestic. And yet actually, the kind of power behind that is something that we maybe recognize, but we've never really talked about. So it was a kind of pinching of that title to sort of echo those sentiments from the book.
The act of baking, I have been shouting this from the rooftops, and I'm just a home baker. I think I'm actually quite a good baker, but I have always said for years that I found baking as a form of therapy. And a lot of people would kind of laugh at that and be like, oh God, that's so cliche, whatever. But there was something about the science of it. The idea that I could step into a kitchen, switch off and follow a recipe. Because with baking, you kind of need to get your measurements. It's not like cooking.
Well, cooking, I think you can be humming and talking to somebody on the phone, chopping onion.
Yeah.
But with baking,
I'm concentrating.
Yes, exactly. And it's that mindfulness. I mean, I know I hate that word. It's a bit overused. But it's that sense of the rhythm, the kind of focus. It's very embodied, kneading pastry and beating eggs. It's very sensory.
It is. And I feel like it touches on all different senses as well. I mean, sometimes I get quite stressed when I'm baking as well.
Right.
Sort of on a complete sort of other side. I think because I'm a perfectionist, I'll be looking in the oven. Is it rising? Is this happening? Is the icing perfect? When you sort of got into baking, was this mindset there for you, having your sort of background of psychology?
No, it really wasn't. I think I gravitated towards it because I was probably a bit of a nervous, anxious person. And I think I naturally gravitated towards it because of that sense of the immersion. You're really immersed in baking and you do forget about everything else. So I think unconsciously I was drawn to it as a way to kind of maybe soothe myself. And then obviously when you finish the thing, that's that sense of mastery, that sense of accomplishment. Like you say, you're a bit nervous.
Yeah.
Is it going to work?
Yeah.
And then that feeling when you've kind of achieved it, that feeling of accomplishment, I think it's just such a great sort of,
Completely.
And I don't think I knew it explicitly, but I just felt drawn to it probably for those reasons.
What does the act of baking mean to you?
Oh gosh, so many things. At first, I think it was just this idea that, you said before that there's the recipe to follow. You're not having to kind of do something wild. If you know that it's a good book, it's a good it's a good writer, you can follow the recipe and get somewhere. So for a time, it was just this idea of being able to make something, follow the rules, and accomplish that. But now, and through writing the book, which although I knew kind of vaguely that there was power behind it, I'd never really talked about it explicitly. In fact, working in kitchens where I was in the pastry section, I'd sometimes felt a bit apologetic, like it was the trivial sort of section, the kind of afterthought to the meal. And then actually, what I realized is that lots of people go to a fancy restaurant like the one I worked in, to celebrate things, all kinds of things. But it's that moment when you bring out a cake and you've piped happy birthday, their faces light up and it touches on something else. It's a sense of celebrating or marking something important. So while we've always sort of celebrated with food, I think we do mark the important moments in life with baking, with cake.
Couldn't agree
you think
more.
of, I've done wedding cakes and I know somehow that I'm connected to that person forever because I made that wedding cake.
That's so true. And I guess it's that element of a meal in a celebration or even a commiseration or anything that you always go back to.
Yeah.
Like I think about like my wedding. So our cake collapsed. We never had our wedding cake.
Right.
It collapsed on the way to the venue because it was various reasons. But don't ask me how. The man who catered our wedding baked a 3-tiered wedding cake during our ceremony and it was ready for the reception.
Oh my gosh.
But anyway, that's another story for another day. But we're going to come back to baking in a minute, but I actually want to take it back. I want to take it all the way back to Malaysia.
Oh, yes.
You were born there.
Yes.
Raised in Australia.
Yep.
I want to know what life was like growing up. I want to know what you were eating, who was cooking, who was around the kitchen table. Paint the picture for us.
It was a very different life moving to Australia. I mean, our lives in Malaysia, although we weren't, super, super wealthy, we were privileged. We had chauffeurs and gardeners and governesses. So it was kind of that life of, I guess when you think of expats living in, it was a bit like that. And as I said, you didn't have to be extremely wealthy, but it was very privileged. And my father was a kind of minor politician. So we were, we had police dogs and my mother was just this sort of a bit of a socialite in the very small town that we grew up in. And when the new economic policy came in, which was sort of, it privileges the indigenous Malay, and we were Chinese Malaysian, which means that it might have been difficult for us to get to university. Okay. My father was very worried about that. So he decided that we would migrate to Australia to give us a better chance to go to university. And that move was, now I think about it, I think, oh my gosh, my poor mum. She didn't speak any English, and then moving to Australia with 5 children. Gosh. And she'd never, in Malaysia, we'd go home for lunch. That we would all sit down for a curry or something. And she had to figure out what are lunch boxes, small things like that. What are even sandwich bread with ham? All that was so foreign to us. Wow. So I think it was I think my dad probably had a bit of a breakdown when I think about it now. I think he was depressed from going, from a sort of minor politician, very prominent in our small town, to a nobody in Australia. I think that maybe there was a bit of a crisis for him there. Mm. And my mother, I think, coped with this sense of being persona non grata by cooking. That's what she knew and that's what she was competent at. And I think she so food was incredibly important to us because it was where my mother gained her sense of identity, and it was where we came together to kind of hold on to something from our old country. And food was the most powerful way for us to do that.
So when you had settled in Australia, was she cooking Malaysian food at home?
Oh yes, always, because we
That
didn't
was it.
know,
Yeah.
we didn't know anything else. I do remember coming home from home economics, which is what is food tech here, and we'd made Irish stew one year. So she had a taste and she said, "Oh, it's really, really quite good. How do you make it?" And I told her, and she says, "Oh, I'm going to make that." And then a week later, she put something at the table, and she said, "Oh, I made your Irish stew." I was looking at it, thinking it looked a bit different. And when I ate it, I thought, "Is this the Irish stew?" She said, "Oh, yes, I added some ginger and soy sauce into it. It just needed that flavor." So, that was kind of very new. And the whole thing about the Malaysian cooking was more, yes, her capturing something of our past, our previous home, and also a way of kind of nourishing us all together in this environment that was so new and so stressful, actually.
Yeah,
More
I can
stressful.
imagine. At this point, sort of you're growing up in Australia, a much more Western culture. Was getting into the food industry ever a possible career path?
Yeah, no, absolutely not. I mean, there was never, and it was never said explicitly that we had to go to university, but we felt it implicitly, that pressure.
Yeah.
I mean, after all, my father, who I think, really suffered through this idea that he was nobody, and it was that sacrifice for us. So we felt that, although it was never kind of spoken, we really felt the pressure. So the idea of cooking, I think I didn't tell my parents for a very long time. I think I sort of made it seem like it was a little hobby, for much longer than it really was, just because I think it might have been quite heartbreaking for them.
Yeah. So you obviously take the path of going to university, and you study psychology, and
I did psychology as a kind of a part of my Bachelor of Science.
Okay.
And then I thought I really wanted to be a psychologist. And the faculty said to me, "You're too young, go and do something else and then come back." So at that point, I worked for a pharmaceutical industry. And part of my job was to tell doctors about new drugs. And what I found was that if I brought lunch and got all the doctors together to come to they were more likely to listen to me. I had a captive audience if I provided lunch.
love this.
And then
Clever.
over time, I thought, actually, I'm more interested in planning the lunch than I was about the drugs. And by the time my boyfriend at the time, who was a journalist, and there was a kind of payout of, redundancies. And he said, "Well, what would you do if you had, a pot of money?" I mean, it wasn't a lot, but what would you do? I said, "Oh, I would just open my cafe." And we were just so naive and so deluded, and it was sheer lunacy, but we did open a cafe. And we just put everything into it, and somehow it really
and
succeeded.
it was quite successful, because I read about this in the book. It was successful.
Yes.
And so at this point, so you're running this cafe, you're in Melbourne?
Yes, Melbourne.
You're cooking, but baking, is that just part of your now job, or is it taking front and center?
I think I just really wanted to cook, but somehow it was the baking that always seemed to get the attention from and I think I didn't realize I was competent at it, like really competent, until it was a sort of feedback. Like you get, suddenly people are responding to it. And I'm not a very ambitious person. I don't plan ahead and think 5 years ahead, but I really follow my nose what's in front of me. And what I knew was in front of me was that whenever I baked something, people's eyes just widened, and they just seemed to gravitate towards me when I baked. It seemed to connect me with people in a way that I hadn't planned to. It was just me immersing myself in it.
So interesting.
So it kind of happened without me planning to. But, because in my head, I was going to go back to be a psychologist.
Yeah. Back to you as a child. Were you baking as a child? Were you ever introduced? Because it culturally, it's not very big in Malaysian cuisine.
So Malaysian cakes are called kueh. They are steamed or fried.
Okay.
very rarely. Well, I think now there are some baked cakes, but at the time, very, very few cakes. You would have very few kind of, baked sponges as we know in the Western world.
Can you remember the first thing you ever baked?
Yeah, I can. It was a lemon slice.
Oh, nice.
My sister had bought a Women's Weekly cookbook, and I noticed that she was making it, and she was, again, lots of attention. And also, I think I could see that sense of accomplishment that she had, in having made something. I mean, it was just this picture in a book, and then suddenly it was this thing that we were all eating and enjoying. And she was quite... not secretive. She was quite protective of her little world of cooking. So I knew it was her thing. And one day when nobody was home, I thought I got that book out and I made the lemon slice from it.
And was it good?
I think I remember thinking that it wasn't as good as she could have made it. And I do still think she's a better baker, but somehow, yes.
I love that.
And she just hasn't pursued it.
Where's your sister now?
Melbourne.
Okay. That's great. So I'm going to fast forward now.
Yeah.
You obviously qualify, you get a doctorate, you are a psychologist. That is now your life. You've left, or the business has ended at the cafe at this point?
Oh, yes. So the business ended, a long, long time ago.
And you sort of get on with your life as a psychologist. And
it's so convoluted. I mean, it's so convoluted.
But it's kind of fascinating. What I'm trying to sort of get at is that you have very beautifully married these two careers. And although on paper, they're two very different careers, different industries, just different everything.
Yes.
There is this wonderful connection between the two, which is why I love the book, because there is that element of, dare I say, psychology in baking.
There's, it's a huge amount of psychology, which I didn't realize at the time. I think I kept them very separate. Also, I was a little bit embarrassed that, if I wanted to be seen as a serious doctor of psychology, then you can't be sort of moonlighting as a chef.
Yeah.
And then if I wanted to be kind of considered a real chef, I couldn't be seen. So that, I kind of split my two little personalities, and I felt like I was leading a kind of double life in a way. And what's really amazing for me about the book, it's helped me to kind of merge my two selves, and it's helped me to own that sense. I remember actually one time saying to my training analyst, I talked about this sort of shame that I wasn't really a real psychologist when I had so much love for baking. And he said to me, Helen, we are a multiplicity of selves, and it's rich. It's what makes the world rich, and you should embrace it. And I think just being given that permission from this sort of, he's in his 80s, and he's an old timer, and to be given that permission just to kind of own all of it, I think has been a real gift.
It really resonated with me because I'm sure I've told you.
You're a photographer.
I was a photographer for 12 years before I decided I call it a career change, but I essentially embarked on a new journey. And the two, until sort of recently, have just sort of gone by hand in hand.
Yes.
But I totally know that feeling of, as particularly on both sides, where, when I'm in my photography world, I don't want them to know about what I'm doing in the food world and the presenting, because I don't want them to think that I'm not a serious photographer.
Yes, exactly.
But then equally, I don't want all of my new friends in the food industry to know about my photography, because I want them to think that I'm really sort of established and I know my worth
and committed.
Yeah. But then also, then the third voice in my head is like, but hold on, Hannah, it's 2025 and people are multi-hyphenated on all their careers and do 4 or 5 different things, and that's fine.
No, it's more than fine.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Right? To just accept and own all of those different parts
and it
of you.
keeps my life quite exciting, quite frankly.
Totally.
I think also, something that's quite exciting about this book, I guess, for you, is that it was your first solo project, because we are going to come on to your time with Yotam, but you have co-written obviously 2 books with him. This is your baby.
Yes.
How was that process for you?
In some ways, it was a lot more challenging, and in other ways, it was a lot easier. Okay. And I think at Ottolenghi, you do have the privilege of sort of focusing on what you're really good at. And so whether it's developing recipes and then someone will go over it and edit it, so that's somebody else's job. So you do have that luxury of being able to kind of focus. There's also a lot of feedback. I mean, I might develop a recipe at home, but ultimately it needs to go to the Ottolenghi test kitchen, where it's subjected to the scrutiny of quite a number of people. And it's great because you get that instant feedback, and sometimes you get, the next steps, what you can do to kind of Ottolenghicize something.
I love it. Is that going to become a verb one day?
Well, it has. And in fact, Yotam said to me, he doesn't want that anymore. It was kind of when we were doing, I think, in Comfort, I think in the early days of Comfort, there was a lot of, how do we Ottolenghicize something? And now
I think I used to say it's been Ottolenghified.
Yes, Ottolenghified, exactly, yes. So you have this kind of team of, I mean, it can be quite intimidating, but actually, if you approach it that it's all constructive and we work as a team, it's amazing to have that instant feedback and to be able to develop a recipe together. Even if it was me who originated it, it's really a group process of, how do we get to the end? How is it? How do we get from my little kitchen to 10 people at the test kitchen all saying, this is amazing. So there's that process there.
It's Hannah here, and I'm so excited to be working with Wayfair.co.uk. Why? Because just like great food, a beautiful home should be full of personality, quality, and joy. Wayfair has everything to bring your dream space to life at prices that make it simple. That's why I'm proud to partner with them. So get it out of your head and into your home with Wayfair.co.uk.
So working on my own, I didn't have that. So in some ways it made it easy because there wasn't all these voices I had to listen to. I only had to kind of tune into what I really wanted. Yes, but then that sometimes I second guess myself. So it could make that process very lengthy and very complicated.
Well, it's also kind of trusting yourself, trusting your palate, trusting. I mean, I assume that the all of the recipes were given to some people to try out.
Yes. In fact, I employed somebody full-time to test it all, because also something like that. I mean, these are, if you've seen the book, it's a lot of it is drawn from my personal life. So sometimes nostalgia gets in the way, sentimental things. So I think you need an external objective tester to say how this flows as a recipe and how does it taste. Absolutely. Because you can be so clouded by sentimental nostalgia. This was my grandmother's recipe or my mother's thing, so I think it was essential to have that.
I obviously have to ask, what are your favorite recipes in the book?
Oh gosh. I have favorites for all kinds of reasons. So the thing that comes to mind immediately, just because you asked me about life in Malaysia, is the pandan chiffon cake.
Yes.
Because that's one of the very few cakes that is baked. And pandan, of course, it runs in my veins. It's just such an evocative scent for me. It takes me right back to my childhood home with pandan, growing in the garden. So that one, I would say, I really love this pear and parmesan and pepper cake.
Okay,
did you see that?
This, yes, and I'm very intrigued by it.
Yes, it's kind of delicious. Aperitivo hour sort of cake, and I know that at the photo shoot when we did the book, it disappeared in 5 minutes. In fact, I saw people kind of cutting and stashing it into their bags.
To be honest, one thing I was going to say as a photographer, the photography is beautiful.
Isn't it beautiful?
Really, particularly special.
I want to shout out to Annie Riggs, who was the stylist, and obviously Laura Edwards as well. She was the photographer.
Beautiful photograph.
I said to Annie, I don't do piping. I'm impatient. I'm just not very good at elaborate things, and I want as a kind of brief to her when at the shoot. What was the word we said? Reassuringly homemade. I wanted it to look sort of undone, not too fancy, but clear, the clarity. And we both agreed clarity is so important. But you can just see from the picture what you're aiming for. And I mean, I do try to get there with the method, with my writing, to be precise enough so that you're not lost, but not so wordy that it kind of complicates things.
Totally.
And I think in this situation, the picture can tell 1,000 words. Right?
100%. That's a really interesting take on it. I do find, particularly with baking cookbooks, that if the final, and listen, and as the reader, we all want to see the end result.
Yes.
I really do like a cookbook with most of the recipes photographed, and I know that makes it difficult and expensive or whatever behind the scenes.
Yes. Well, that was a
it has to be, I think in this day and age, it kind of has to be, because we're all visual people.
Yes.
But I felt that I was looking at the end result, and there are other cookbooks out there that I'm like, oh, mine's never going to look like that. Like, I don't even have the utensils to make this icing as clean cut.
Right.
You know, it's just ridiculous.
Yes.
Whereas at least here, I quite like that. I don't know if you like this word to be used, but I quite like that rustic look.
Yeah.
That's just
Homely.
how it is homely. And that's where I am at.
Yes.
That's how I bake, and that's hopefully how it will end up looking.
And I think that's also deliberate, not just because that's my aesthetic, kind of reassuringly homemade, but also to say that actually the domesticness of it doesn't diminish it.
Yeah.
You know, in fact, often it's like, you know, if lemon drizzle cake because it's your mother's recipe or your aunt's recipe, that sense of continuity, that's what animates it. You know, it doesn't have to be piped to. Although I did go to Lily Vanilli's class recently in piping, and I'd
actually love to do one of those classes.
I highly recommend it.
She's lovely. She came on the podcast years ago, actually.
Oh, I love Lily.
Yeah. So I just want to take it back a bit. So you were working in Melbourne. You were at sort of quite established restaurant in Melbourne as a pastry chef. You come to London. What brought you to London in the first place?
There's only one thing that could move you like that. It's love.
Oh. And is that your now husband?
Yes, it is.
Oh, I love it. So it worked. It was worth it.
Well, it was a 3-year long distance thing, and then it was make or break.
Oh.
And I like change, so it wasn't such a huge sort of leap for me.
You obviously meet Yotam. You start working for him. Talk to me about that relationship, because interestingly, I met Yotam many moons ago because my parents have a photography gallery that is opposite what used to be the Kensington branch of Ottolenghi.
Yes, well, I managed that branch. Oh, I know that photography.
That's my father.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
So we became really good friends with Yotam and Carl, because Carl was also there.
He was the manager. Yeah. I was managing the kitchen, and he was doing the office.
I have a bone to pick with you. I was eating so much and spending so much money of all the money. I was a Saturday girl at the gallery, and I was spending all my money at Ottolenghi. So although I was devastated when it shut down, there was also, my bank account was a little stabilized. That's a good word. But you know, let's talk about it, because obviously he has grown to you know, stratospheric levels. Talk about that first meeting.
I'd come here. I'd been registered as a psychologist by then. I'd kind of, you know, left Melbourne. I had my qualification in hand. I was now feeling I was married and thinking, I'm grown up now. I'm going to get my chaise longue. I'm going to establish myself in my London clinic.
I love it.
And then there was some time, I wanted to do the doctorate to kind of seal everything. And there was 6 months till the course started. And David, my husband, said, I think he was a bit worried that I was just going to stay home. And so he said, look, there's a cute little deli down the road. We were living close by. Go and have
Kensington.
Actually, it was Notting Hill.
Oh, Notting Hill. Okay, yeah.
So I went in there, and of course I'm seduced by it and thinking, oh, maybe I could just do a few shifts here and there. So I wrote an email to Yotam that afternoon, and he responded to me within the hour, because without me knowing, somebody in Melbourne, he'd had an Australian neighbour who'd had a tip off of a friend that I was coming to London, and Yotam should look out for me. So he was kind of waiting for me, and
this is serendipity.
I know, it was so crazy. So it was just like the way he responded so quickly. Then literally a couple of hours later, I was down at Ledbury Road, and we had a chat. The place was packed, so we got a coffee, and we were sitting on the
stools bit.
No,
on the pavement.
The stools, on the pavement, like on the ground.
Love it.
And just having a chat. And then I just started on the Monday. I started in the salad section because I thought, you know, I wanted to do something different than baking. And Sammy was the chef at the kitchen.
So what year was this?
2006. So it's
okay,
nearly 20 years ago.
So I grew up I grew up near the one in Ledbury Road. So because that was the one I knew to begin with.
That was the first one.
That was the first one, yeah.
Wow. So I go there and I have this chat with Yotam, and I work there, and it just felt like we were speaking the same language. So yes, you're right. He's become this very, an authority on cooking and very formidable figure, and this sort of minor well, I don't even know minor, but a celebrity chef.
Yeah.
But I guess I never saw that because we all just spoke the same language. It was just exciting and our lives were very blurred then. We didn't have children then. So we would kind of finish work, go and get a drink, end up at dinner, then writing emails about what works, and then ended up, it was just very fluid. And we were all, it was, I guess, because we all came from somewhere else, we were each other's family. And this feeling like we shared the language, we shared the food, we just got along. So it just felt very organic. It worked. Yeah.
It's incredible. What would you say you've learned from him over the years?
A lot. He's I think first and foremost, his patience and tact. I'm a very expressive, emotional person, and what I've learned from him is this. What he does is he's very good at listening. So he will listen. I mentioned before that there could be 10 people at the test kitchen, each giving their 2 bobs worth. And he's very patient. You can hear him listening and giving everybody that space. And then he will you can see him kind of synthesizing it in his head and processing it in his own mind. And then 2 hours later or 2 days later, he'll say, okay, so I think we should do this. But in order to get to that phase, he's listened to everybody else and given everybody else that space and time. And I think that's a real gift. And his tact, it always, I don't think he means to be manipulative, but it always feels like somehow it was your idea. Somehow it felt great. Yes, well, we've come to this because you've originated this, so it's very generous.
Yeah.
I think he's generous as well.
I can't think of anything more nerve-wracking than creating a recipe and getting Yotam to try it to get essentially a yes or a no. Yeah. I would literally be quivering.
For 10 years that I worked kind of solidly there, I don't think I felt that, but I think I do now.
Really?
Yes. So I don't know what's happened, because for all the time that we worked so closely, I think maybe because we were just so involved and so immersed in it. But now probably, I sent him a recipe actually just a few days ago. We were eating somewhere and he said, well, that's really nice. And I said, well, I think I can do a better version.
Love that.
So I did. I went home and then I emailed it to him, and it's been 3 days and I've been thinking, has he made it? I wonder what he's thought of it. Or maybe he didn't like it. He hasn't told me.
I love that. Okay, I have a baking SOS conversation to have with you.
Okay. Shoot.
So I have a terrible relationship with yeast. I simply cannot...
You and lots of people, by the way.
Yes. I simply cannot bake a recipe with yeast in it. I think it's my magnetic fielding. I'm convinced it's something. There is a very infamous story that happened to me during COVID where I was making babka. I love babka. It's one of my favourite things in the world.
Yeah.
I'm convinced I was actually missold yeast. It was at a time during COVID where yeast disappeared because everybody became bread makers all of a sudden.
So you think you got a bit of cement or something?
Quite frankly, it looked and tasted like cement. So yeah, probably. But I was filming this video because I didn't have anything else to film. And I have let the dough prove in the airing cupboard. It hasn't risen. So I'm like, I don't know what to do. I've left it for so long. It's going to start going moldy soon. So we start filming this scene where I'm on the worktop and I'm plaiting the bread, and it is completely falling apart. It is so disastrous that I end up starting to cry. Aww. My husband is filming this and he sort of looks up from the camera and he's like, are you crying? And I'm like, I just don't understand why it's not working. And I'm forcing it into this tin and I bake it and it was stodgy. It was terrible. And as you said, a lot of people have issues with yeast. And this is a very generic question, but any tips or tricks when it comes to working with yeast?
So I think, you know what, I would say that I was in that situation not so long ago.
Oh, either. Okay. Well, that makes me feel a bit better then.
I think the thing is, I mean, there's no shame in using dried yeast to begin with, okay? I think for a long time there was a feeling that you were either cheating or using an easy way out or, absolutely not. Dried yeast is just as good. It is also, to be fair, it's confusing because you have instant yeast and then you have yeast instant yeast meaning you can just add it to flour and treat it as an ingredient like you would baking powder, for example.
Yeah.
And then there are yeasts that you need to activate it in warm water, to sort of let it bloom, froth.
Yeah.
I think just use the instant yeast and treat it like baking powder. But although having said that, you can do that. But I always do. I think I like the idea that I'm working with something live. So I do like to activate it in warm water, regardless of what kind. Treat it like any other ingredient. I think it's instantly we think yeast, oh God, it could fail. It's not going to rise. It's dead yeast. It's,
I think I've got PTSD from it.
Oh, I get
yeah.
it.
I really am going to try again.
There's a butter in there.
And that's why I wanted to bring it up, because I saw it and I thought, last night I was looking and I was like, do I, don't I?
Yes,
do I make it? Do I not?
Yes, you do. We're going to cure you of this phobia. I'm on the couch with you, Hannah, and we're going to cure you of this yeast phobia.
If anyone else was going to ask you kind of like maybe your top 3 baking tips, it could be anything. What would you give?
For me, baking a cake, butter, the consistency of butter is the most important thing.
Okay.
And what I realize, with Australia, just sort of different climates, how important, when you say room temperature butter, I mean room temperature butter that is it's not oily, it's soft, but it's not oily.
Yeah.
But in Australia, it could be oily. So that's not room temperature. Room temperature might be. So if it says room temperature, remove the butter out of the fridge. I remove it overnight. I leave it out of the bench overnight.
Okay.
Yes, that is essential.
Okay.
What else? I think having the right equipment. So, for example, an extension of my hand is this drop spatula. Do you know what that is?
No.
It's a kind of, it's a small spatula that has a kind of little drop to it.
Ooh.
It just helps you smooth things, and it's small and very maneuverable. I usually carry it in my back pocket because I cannot live without it. What else? I think taking the time, if you're making a bundt cake, for example, really take the time to grease it properly. Because I hate that job, actually, but I know when I don't use melted butter because it's going to pool and leave little clumps because you're going to dust it with flour.
Okay, these are actually very good tips.
You're going to have a lumpy tin with butter pooling at the bottom. So you need to have softened butter, which you brush in every crevice and corner, and then you put the flour in, rotate the tin, and tap out the excess, and then put it in the fridge. It's done. Because I hate lining cake tins.
So would you put all cake tins that you're greasing and lining, you'll put into the fridge?
I do.
That's such a good
That's not
tip.
essential. It's just kind of my little quirk.
I quite like that.
More particularly with those bundt tins.
Yeah, because
other tins you're using baking parchment, right?
Yeah.
That you don't need to, that you could just kind of put aside. But I feel that with bundt tins, it just helps it plop out a lot. I mean, I was going to say this. It never happens that it doesn't. That it sticks. Mine always come out perfectly. But I know now that I've said it.
That's also because you're Helen Goh, and
it's
us mere mortals.
No, it's because actually I'm a naturally impatient person, and I know from experience that the little things I cut corners with, particularly with lining cake tins, because I don't like doing it, that you've gone to the trouble of doing the cake. Just that little insurance.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Let's step away from baking for a second. What do you like to cook at home?
Oh, well, I think what's easy for me right now is what my children like, because sometimes I put something on the table and they'll grumble and grumble and grumble. And then, the whole night is just them moaning. So they love at the moment poke balls.
Oh, yeah. Nice. Because you've got 2 boys.
2 boys.
They're how old?
14 and 10.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
And they're at that phase of poke balls, gyoza, sushi.
Love this for them.
So there's a lot of that at home, and so that's what
delicious.
I cook. For myself, I would cook steamed rice, Poon's lapchong sausage. Ooh. That is just I always have in the fridge, a fried egg, and Poon's chili oil.
Delicious.
Yes, that's just
I love a good chili oil.
That's just my go-to.
When you're out and about, where are some of your favorite restaurants?
Oh, I don't so much have favorite restaurants as I have, I'm a moody person. If I feel like eating something, then that's what I feel like. So it's more where I go to when I have that sort of craving. So if I'm with friends who are vegetarian, I might go to Trishna.
Oh, lovely.
For me, that's just sort of just so good. Royal China for dim sum.
Yes.
St. John's for kind of people, especially people who come from, visitors from
Great
out
place
of
to
town.
take them.
I love it. And actually, Cafe Deco in Bloomsbury. Do you know
don't
that?
know Cafe Deco.
Well, I think she has that similar thing of sort of pared back, really honest, hyper seasonal, and just everything just tasting of itself so much. Anna Tobias.
Oh, yes. Okay.
I love her food. It's
Okay.
and just such an unassuming little cafe, and just the food that just punches above its weight.
Oh, I'm going to write that place down. Okay, so I have a new segment in this season where I don't know if you've noticed on the coffee table, there is a very lovely bowl with actually my baby's muslin in there. That's not really meant to be there. That's not.
Oh, by the way, they make the best dishcloths, baby muslins, by the way.
Do they?
Yeah,
oh, I know. I'm going to
do.
keep all of them when he grows up. We're
Exactly.
keeping them all.
Yeah.
And underneath is a gift that I have chosen. So essentially, I choose a gift. It's a very silly little gift that you still have to take home. You can chuck it in the bin.
Oh, I'm intrigued.
That reminds me of my guest. After the conversation that we've just had a second ago, I probably feel like this is more a gift for me, but I feel like I need to do it psychologically. I saw it as a way of me buying it for you so that I have good omen for the future.
Oh, this is so intriguing.
So I thought I'd get you some yeast. Now, this is obviously dried active yeast.
Yes.
It's very silly, but I feel like if you're touching it and you're putting that energy back into this room, I'm going to be able to bake with yeast again.
And it's kind of live, and I think it's brilliant. I keep it in my freezer, by the way. I also keep I keep all my yeast in the freezer.
Well, even this type?
Yes, even this type.
Oh, I better take it out of my cupboard then.
Yeah, put it in there. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even think. Okay.
Yes.
Well, there we go. And we finished with quick fire questions.
Oh, right. Okay.
Are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Okay. What is the craziest food you've ever eaten?
Last year in Kakadu National Park in Australia, green tree ants that we were told to pick off the tree and eat. It took me a very long time, but I did do it.
And what did you think?
It's more flavorful than you might think.
So I had ants in Brazil, and it was like lemongrass.
Yes, it was. Yes,
I quite like
lemongrass, coriander,
Yeah.
lemon, and in fact, our guide said, if you roast fish, I don't know how you can collect enough ants to roast a fish with it, but he said that was perfect seasoning for roast fish.
Well, they're saying that in years to come, they are such a high source of protein that we are going to eventually, it's going to start, I mean, we're talking years,
yes.
It will become normal to eat ants.
I just kept thinking, what if I don't bite it and it just it's biting my tongue. That's what I was.
The ones I had, I think, had been fried, but no, I quite liked it.
Well, yes, fried sounds good.
What is your most memorable meal?
That would be eating a suckling pig at the Roman aqueducts in Segovia.
Oh, wow.
Segovia in Spain. Do you know about that?
No, but
you've got to go. It is the skin is like shatteringly fine. It's like glass, and the meat is literally melt in the mouth. That is easily. I mean, my husband took me there shortly after we moved here, and well, perhaps it was sort of part of all that, but I don't think so. I think it really was that suckling pig.
My favourite snack of all time is a packet of crisps.
Oh yes, I know about you.
What is your favourite flavour of crisps?
So I've changed.
Oh,
it used to be the most dirty flavour, the most muddy flavour, like prawn cocktail. The most crazy flavours, it would be that would be the one I would go for, like pizza flavour or something. But now, and this is a new discovery, and I'm absolutely obsessed by it. It's called Simply Roasted. Do you know it, that brand?
Oh, I do. Yes, and they're baked. I think
they're baked.
Yeah.
And don't let that put you off, because honestly, I mean, fried food has never put me
nice.
off. They taste more.
Which flavour do you like?
The plain.
Okay.
The plain. It tastes more potatoey than any other crisp that you can find.
Happy to take that as an answer.
Excellent. Yeah.
It's better than a prawn cocktail. That's my worst flavour. What food sums up happiness for you?
Oh, that would be my steamed rice and lapchong and fried egg and chili oil and a bit of gailan on the side.
I want that next time I come over.
Yeah. Oh, easy done. Let's put a date in the diary.
What is your favourite cake?
Oh, I would say a very plain Madeira cake. It's hard to get right. I like a very simple cake. There's a book out at the moment called the Plain Cake Appreciation Society.
What a
And
brilliant
I'm
name.
like, I wish I had written that book.
That is
I just
brilliant.
love that title.
I love it.
And you can see I go for grandiose titles.
Yeah. No, I love it. And final question, live to eat or eat to live?
Oh my gosh. There's no question about that. Live to eat.
Yes.
My husband is the other way round.
Is he?
Yes, so I don't know how we got together.
Helen, honestly, what a beautiful conversation. What I think an important conversation, actually. And I wish you nothing but the best.
Thank you,
I wish
Hannah.
you huge luck with the book.
Thank you.
I'm going to go away and choose something that has yeast in it, and I will report back.
The babka has your name on it.
Gosh, I'm so nervous.
It's going to work.
I need everyone
It's
out
going
the
to
house, and I just need to have an afternoon to myself.
It's going to work.
And we'll see what happens. But thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much, Hannah. I've loved talking to you.
As always. Until next time.
Hungry for more? Hit subscribe.